everyone, and welcome back to our Flamingo Stitch Along series. If you've been working along, you should be really close to finishing your flamingo now, which is so exciting. And this is where all those lovely details, the smaller details, start to make a difference and everything starts coming together. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Sarah and I'm an embroidery tutor trained at the Royal School of Needlework, and this is part 5 of a step-by-step beginner series. So if you're interested in joining us and learning this lovely design, then I'd recommend you start back at the beginning from the first video, and then you can work them in order and come back to this one when you are ready. In this video, we're going to learn Pekinese and woven backstitch. These are slightly more decorative stitches and they're perfect for adding a little bit of interest and texture into our work. So without delay, let's get started and add those little extra details to our flamingo design. We're going to look at Pekinese, which is going to be in these 3 little water sections here. And Pekinese is also going to be in this middle shape here, and then this middle shape here as well. And then we're going to look at a woven backstitch, which is going to be the outer section here and the outer section here. And I've added a little V-stitch to the woven backstitch as well, just to add a little something extra special. So we'll go ahead and we'll start looking at the Pekinese in this section here. And it's worked in the same way for here and obviously for the bottom waves as well. And you can find colour references on the stitch plan. So I'm going to look at the Pekinese first on this middle section here. Now I'm using 2 strands of the 741. We'll just start our thread off on our design line. We're going to start with a backstitch to begin with. And to do that, I'm going to bring the needle up, now not at the point as I would do most stitches, but I'm going to bring it up on my design line further down. Now the length that we do these stitches is up to you. I'm going to aim for around about 3mm, but anywhere in between 3 to 4mm is good. So I've got about 3mm there, and then I'm going to come up again about 3mm away and then take my needle back down in the same hole as where I first brought it up. So I'm always sharing that same hole. Oh, you can see a little bit of my starting thread has just popped through, so I'm just going to trim that off. And then we'll bring the needle up again, another 3mm away. And we want to take our needle back down into the same hole here like that. And the trick with this stitch is to keep our stitches all as close in length as possible as we can and sharing the same hole so we get a nice smooth line. But you're always coming up slightly further away and then taking the needle down through the same hole. Now you may find on tight curves that you need to make your stitches a little bit smaller. For a curve like this, we could probably get away with what I'm doing now and keep it at about 3mm. That one looks a little bit too close. But you might find if you had a tighter curve, then you would need to think about bringing it up a little bit closer and making the stitches a fraction shorter. So I'm going to go around and work this section, and then I'll come back and show you how to do the actual Pekinese part. So we're going to look at the Pekinese part of the stitch now, which is basically going to create loops that wrap around our back stitches. Now I want my loops to be on the outside. I'm working in 2 strands of the 600 and I've threaded up a tapestry needle. And I've brought my needle up at the end of the back stitch there, and I'm going to work this top bit first and then come around and do the bottom bit. Now we want to take our needle underneath from the inside of our shape to the outside, and underneath, not the first back stitch, but the second back stitch. So I'm going to come underneath that back stitch there like that. Now I'm not going to pull it tight and all the way through at this stage, because I'm now going to take my needle back underneath the very first back stitch and I'm going to go from the top to the bottom. There, like that. And I'm coming over the top of this thread here. Now that I've gone over the top of it, I can now pull that thread tight from underneath, and that thread's going to sit flush with the back stitch. I can then come and pull this one, and I want this one, the outside one, so this one that runs along here, to be a little loop. So to help me tension my loops, I'm going to use a pin, and I'm going to put that in place to give me the size of the loop that I want, and pull the thread taut up against the pin. Now the size of the loop I want is up to me. I suggest don't go too loose, and obviously too tight, you don't see anything. Okay, so you want a bit of a loop, but not too loose. So I usually go about 1 millimeter away from my back stitch. I'm then going to take my needle again, and I'm going to miss this back stitch here, and I'm going to go underneath the next one. And again, I'm coming from the inside of the shape, or from the bottom out towards the top. Leave a little loop there, and I'm going to go back into that second back stitch, so I'm sharing the back stitch of my loop. So it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So the needle goes underneath that back stitch there like that, and I want to take the needle over this loop of thread. I can then pull that taut, make sure I pull it evenly, and because I've got the pin there, I can pull that taut and it will maintain tension on my little loop. If I didn't have the pin there, that loop tends to tighten. And I can come in and put a pin for my next loop. And I want to keep that about the same distance away from my back stitch as my first one. And there we have our first 2 stitches. So I'm now going to come in, not this one, but the next one, underneath the back stitch, from the bottom to the top. Leave the thread there. Come back into the back stitch, or underneath the back stitch where I've just created my loop. Over my working thread. Pull that taut. And again, I can pull it taut because I've got the pin holding that in place. And then instead of getting a new pin, I'm just going to take the first pin out and remove it to the third loop. And I'm lining the pin up with the back stitch join. So where my 2 back stitches here meet, I'm lining it up with that. So I miss this one and then into this one. There, like that. Leave our thread and then back into the one previous. So back underneath. So this thread is only going through the fabric at the very start and of course at the very end. I'm not going through the fabric at all while I'm doing this stitch. It is a bit fiddly, but I find the pins help massively in kind of keeping everything nice and consistent. So I'll show you one more, and then I'm just going to carry on working around the whole piece. So my loops are always around the outside edge here like that. You could absolutely, if you wanted to, have the loops on the inside, but I didn't want that in my design. Bring that over our thread. It's probably the fiddliest part, is getting that over. And there we have our Pekinese stitch. So we're going now to look at the woven back stitch, and we're going to start by putting in our back stitch along this outside line here, and that's also going to be worked in the outside of that shape as well. Now I'm going to work in 2 strands of 600. We're working them in the same way as we did for the Pekinese, but we can make them a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go more between 4 and 5 millimeters for these. just to add a little bit of difference to our design, but they're worked in the same way as we've just done the Pekinese ones. Bring the needle up at the furthest point and then take it down into the same hole. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in, and then I'll come back to you with the next bit. So we're now going to look at the weaving part, and I've started off 2 strands of the green thread, the 470. I'm bringing the needle up at the end of my back stitch, and I'm going to swap over to a tapestry needle because I don't want to catch the threads. And it's very easy this. We're just going to go from the inside to the outside underneath the first back stitch. There, like that. And then underneath the next back stitch, but we're going to go from the outside to the inside. Take care not to obviously catch the other side of back stitch. And we can pull these tighter. You can leave them a little bit looser like that. I wouldn't go too big with them, but I think a little bit of a loop is nice. Into the next back stitch, and I'm going to go underneath, and this time from the inside to the outside of my shape. You can use the needle to help guide. And then again for the next one, and this time I'm going from the outside of the shape to the inside. Because we're using 2 strands, make sure that they're tensioned evenly. And we're just going to work like this around the whole shape. Obviously not catching any of our Pekinese stitch that we've put in. I'm popping a finger underneath to just push up the fabric can help a little bit. So I'm going to go all the way around this shape. So we're looking at our little V stitches here now, and using 2 strands of the orange, so the 741, and I've just started my thread off on that outside line there. I've already put a couple in, and basically they're 2 little straight stitches that are sitting where the back stitch joins one another. I'm not putting it in every back stitch join. Where the back stitch joins here, you can't see that because it's being hidden with the green thread, so I'm going to go to that one there. Then I'll go to that one there and that one there. So it's every other one. And the stitch length for this is kind of up to you. How big do you want these little V's to be? I like them to be a reasonable size. I think it's nice to be able to see them. Come up on the outside and then down into the same hole as where our back stitches were. So you'll end up with 4 stitches in that one hole. There, like that. And we'll just work those all the way along the inside. And if you wanted to, you could put them along the outside edge. But to be honest, it's a bit tight with the pattern here and here. So I probably wouldn't bother putting them around the outside edge. I think they look pretty just on the inside. And there we have our Pekinese and woven back stitch. These really add lovely detail and texture into our design, and you should now, once you've completed these stitches, be so close to finishing your flamingo. Don't forget to take your time with these stitches and enjoy the process. In the next video, we'll be finishing the project, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the final part of the series. And as always, please feel free to share your progress. Just tag me on @wellembroidered on Instagram, because I love seeing all of your pieces and how you translate one design into your own personal project. Thanks so much for stitching along with me, and I'll see you all in our final video. Bye!